If you are curious about using clinical EFT to help you on your healing journey, I'm going to share a bit with you today about how it's helped me and how it helps my clients too, and also how I've used clinical EFT in different ways over my healing journey as well. So it's not just used in one way, but it's evolved as time has gone by. So my name is Donna Louise, and I am a trauma-trained somatic practitioner, functional breathwork coach. I am a trauma-informed clinical EFT practitioner and also a trainee counselor. And I made a video yesterday, I believe, which was about all the different tools and modalities and things that I did in my trauma recovery journey. And one of the things that I said in that video was how I used clinical EFT. That was a huge tool for me, but also how it had changed. I don't use it the same way now as I did 3 years ago. And somebody asked me to explain why that had changed in the comments in that video. So that's why I'm making this now. And clinical EFT is such a fantastic modality especially for working with integrating and processing PTSD. It is a validated treatment for PTSD, and clinical EFT. So if you don't know already, EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. And emotional freedom techniques is where it's a psychosomatic tool where we tap on very specific acupressure points on the body, which have been extensively studied, that help reduce the activity that happen in the amygdala and also reduce your cortisol and adrenaline running through your body. And so I'm just demonstrating what EFT looks like. There are different versions of this where people might tap on a couple of extra other points, but in clinical EFT, we just tap on these ones. And it is such a fantastic tool for helping to essentially calm us down in a moment of activation, and to help us process and integrate difficult things that we need to talk about, where as we're talking about those things, we feel a lot of energy, a lot of activation in our system. Now, when I first started using clinical EFT, I was using it very cathartically. So I was journaling my thoughts and feelings around particular events and situations that I had experienced, which I knew had been very painful. And then I was taking those experiences with me to my trauma-informed clinical EFT practitioner that I worked with on and off for over 2.5 years. And we would, session by session, work through using clinical EFT to talk about those things. And what it does is that it creates a sense of embodiment in the body. So as we are tapping on these specific acupressure points, we are feeling our body in this present moment at this time. And at the same time, it is reducing the cortisol in our system because it is directly communicating with our amygdala. And there are thousands of studies on this, especially if you look up the work done by Dr. Pater Stapleton at Bond University in Australia. She's the leading psychologist on this subject. And yeah, I'm not going to dispute its effectiveness. And it was extremely effective for me. And in the beginning of my healing journey, what clinical EFT helped me to do was stay regulated whilst talking about extremely difficult things. However, that was because at the start of my healing journey, I did not have the capacity to feel all of my feelings because they were so overwhelming. And part of that was because I had been suppressing and repressing them for so long. But another part of that was the way that I was going at using clinical EFT to kind of, purge all of this information that I want, and my opinions and my thoughts and my feelings that I had kept to myself, which is extremely dysregulating. And clinical EFT was a tool that I could use to talk about these things and help me regulate my nervous system in the process. And clinical EFT is a fantastic tool, and it's recommended for PTSD. So if you have had an acute traumatic event, which I speak about in a few other videos, so something that happened that was too much, too soon, too fast, and it overwhelmed your nervous system. Typically, this might look like a shock event. And clinical EFT is really fantastic for helping people that are having PTSD symptoms like flashbacks and nightmares and things like this. So it's really good when it's used with a trauma-trained practitioner to help you process the things that you are remembering and feeling from that time, because the body is stuck in that time. However, and we use very specific tools for that. We have a whole wide range of protocols for using clinical EFT with people that have got recovering from PTSD. So I don't want you to misunderstand, like, you can't just go to any EFT practitioner and, get them to help you with some PTSD. Unless they are trauma trained in clinical EFT and they have that certification, you want to check those things. You don't want to do that because you need to be trauma informed before helping somebody process a trauma. But EFT can be used in a much gentler way. And so after a while of being with a practitioner and doing that with them in that safe and secure, environment, having somebody there with me that was setting the scene from the beginning, that was, helping me to orient, that was helping me to ground before, during, and after the session. And that person was also someone I'd been working with for a long time. And so we had built up this relational therapeutic relationship where there was trust and safety in that relationship. So, and that person's job is to, keep you safe as you are integrating and talking about those things. After I did that, I have gone on to use EFT, that what I like to call the tap and talk technique. So for a long time afterwards, and still even today, if something very stressful has activated me, I will write down as much as I can, and then I will read that back to myself whilst tapping and talking aloud. And so this will help to calm and regulate me in that moment. But EFT is also really good for helping move through limiting self-belief. So it's a fantastic tool for self-development as well, and for helping us process, our emotions that aren't serving us anymore, and cycles and loops and patterns that we want to move out of. And so I've used it for that a lot over the last 2 to 3 years. But typically now I use EFT in a much more gentle way, because I've done a lot of processing and integrating of big events using it. And now I use clinical EFT in a way that is a lot more gentle on my nervous system. So again, just tapping and talking. I don't need to write things down so much anymore, but just tapping and talking through different situations that might be causing me stress today. I'm not still using it to process my trauma. I haven't used it for that in a long time. But yeah, just using it in this really gentle way, or even the next level down, which is tapping and breathing. So sometimes if I don't want to talk about it, tapping and breathing. So just inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale is such a nourishing, grounding, calming tool to have on hand. And that's how I use it so much now. But in the past, I used it because I wanted it to help me regulate, but that it needed to help me regulate because my system was so overwhelmed. And this isn't necessarily the ideal thing that happens either. Like, this was also kind of before I was fully aware of the fact that I was processing some very big feelings. EFT as well can actually, it's an incredible tool. I would say 8 out of 10 of my clients might come to sessions and say, I just don't know what I need to talk about. I don't know if I've got anything to work through. I don't know. I know that there's this thing that happened, but I'm not quite sure where to start. Within a couple of minutes of doing tapping, the body begins to present the things that you need to work through. So that's extremely important. But circling back, what I wanted to say is it's not ideal to use any modality to have like big cathartic releases, but sometimes, like, this is why it's so important to work with trauma trained practitioners that can ground you down into the present moment and to help you cultivate that safety. But now I am much more gentle with myself. I don't have this urgency. And I talk about this in my healing journey a lot. Like, there's this period of time where you think, oh, I just need to do this for a few months and then I'm going to be feeling better. So you do all the things. I was doing EFT, I was doing breath work, I was doing different types of meditations, I was going to counseling, I was doing all the things. I was doing so many ice baths, all these different things that, that can help you process and integrate trauma, because I wanted the relief from it. But as soon as I accepted that it was not, there wasn't really like the need to rush towards the end was what was causing further dysregulation. And I just accepted that it's going to take as long as it's going to take. And actually, I'm learning so much about myself in the process. And I'm enjoying that, despite the fact that I wish I wasn't put in this position to be on this journey in the first place. But I'm enjoying learning these things about myself, and I'm enjoying learning about my body, and I'm enjoying feeling. Then, I've stopped with the rushing to do everything all at once. And when you work with a trauma-informed, trauma-trained practitioner like myself, the emphasis in the beginning of the journey is about cultivating safety and building capacity, so that the actual work, when you come to do it later, where you are processing your feelings and different events, isn't overwhelming anymore, because you've already gently, little by little, decreased some of that stress gently out of your system and increased the capacity of your nervous system. So I hope that answers the question about how my experience with EFT has changed over the time. It's not a perfect journey. I made mistakes with that before. This was before I also became a trauma trained practitioner. and I would do things very differently now. I hope that that's clear in this video. And I'm not suggesting that you do what I do. This is just me sharing my experience and what I have experienced with some clients as well. And if you are curious to learn more about how clinical EFT can support you in your healing journey, please reach out, click the link in the description, drop any more comments in the comments section, any questions that you've got, and I can see if I can make another video about that. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you here again soon.